Guys, welcome to my channel Canada PR Dreams, and today we're gonna talk about the SINP, the Saskatchewan Immigration Nominee Program. This category is very popular because it does not require any job offer to apply. Let's move on to these categories and see how you can apply and what are the documents you need and what categories you can apply. Though they have the two categories. One is the occupation in demand categories, which does not require CLB7. If you have CLB4, you can apply for the occupation in demand categories, whereas the other categories, Saskatchewan Express Entry categories, which require CLB7. We're gonna see how the points are calculated. For both the categories, the points are calculated out of 100, and this point grid will have two different factors. So for the factor 1, that has a maximum of 70 points, and these points are breakdown in the different level. First is the educations, which has the maximum of 23 points, which is master. The skilled worker experience is maximum of 15 points. If you have more than 10 years of experience, you can claim it, but it has to be on the occupation in demand. Language ability has the maximum of 20 points, and the D is age, which has a maximum of 12 points. These are the factor 1. Let's move on to the factor 2. Factor 2 is all about connections or the adaptabilities in for the Saskatchewan nomination program. So it has the maximum of 30 points. In case of adaptabilities, if you have any close family relatives in Saskatchewan, you will get the maximum of 20 points. If you have any work experience in the Saskatchewan, you will get the maximum of 5 points. And if you have studied any 1 year programs, you will get the maximum of 5 points. If you have the job offer from the Saskatchewan labor market, then you can get the maximum 30 points, but that will be of employment offer subcategories only. You cannot get the points here. So these are the different factors you need to know about this one. So factor 1 has a 70 points and factor 2 has a 30 points. So you have to score at least 60 points out of this both the factors to get more points, and hence the selection for the PNP. Let's move on to the different categories and check. Let's talk about the factor 1. So as we talked earlier, the factor 1 is consist of your educations. Uh, Here in educations, you need to have the master's or doctorate degree, which has to be Canadian equivalence. So you need ECA to apply, about 23 points. You will get a maximum of 23 points with this education and training. If you have the bachelor degrees or any degrees which is more than 3 years of programs, you will get the 20 points. Make sure you have the ECA from designated agencies in order to claim these points. Now the big one is skilled work experience. If you have the experience in last 5 years, you can get maximum of 10 points. Here is the catch: it has to be in the demand occupations. You cannot claim any work experience if it's is not in demand. Say for an example, if your work experience is 2173, you have to have the education, say for the computer engineering, and you need to have the work experience in the same field. You cannot claim the experience from other field because if it's not in demand. That was just for an example. Same thing for the work experience for the last 10 years. It has to be from the same occupation in demand categories. You cannot claim for any experience from other than the demand occupations, otherwise you won't get any points for that one. So make sure you count that your points correctly to get the proper SINP nominations, otherwise they won't give you the nominations. The next point is the language abilities. Here the language ability has the CLP8 has the highest point, which is 20 points. You need to give either IELTS, LPIP or the TAP examinations to get this point for your language abilities. This is if CLB7, that's for the Saskatchewan Express Entry, it's must. Age, if you are between the age of 22 and 34, that's where you get the more point, which is 12 points, which is the maximum of in these categories. So this is the categories where you can get the points if you are under 34. So factor 1 has the 70 points and you have to score highest in these categories. Let's talk about the factor 2, which is all about adaptabilities. So if you have your uncle or the niece or the nephew or the cousins or the siblings who are the Canadian citizens or the permanent residents, then you can claim the 20 points from them. Yes, and they have to make sure they meet the requirement for the ISW subcategories. They need to provide some documentations to prove that they can support you. If you have the work experience in the Saskatchewan, you will get the 5 points. It has to be like within the last 5 years. Uh, for the study visas, you'll get the 5 points if you are studying in Saskatchewan. These are the list for the occupations. You can pause your video and check whether your occupation is demand or not. You can also check the group descriptions where I will put the uh, link for the occupation demand list, because it's always changing. So by the time when you see video, this might not be the correct occupations because they must have revised. So always check the link which I have said in the group descriptions to get the latest update for the occupations in the list. Here you have to make sure you also meet the licensing criteria, which is beside the NOC code, because some of the categories are uh, required to have the license in order to practice in Saskatchewan, and that's why in order to get the nominations, it will be the mandatory for you to get the licensing from the respective agencies. So this is all about the occupation list. So let's check these criteria for each categories in detail. First is occupation in demand categories. For these categories, the eligibility criteria is you need to pay the application fee, which is $300, and it will increase to 350 in the spring. You need to get 60 points out of the 100 from SINP grade. You need to have at least CLB level 4 and the ECA from the designated organizations. Because of the CLB4, this level category, this demand category is very popular with the people who has the less IELTS. You need to have the 1 year experience in the last 10 years and the 2 years work experience if you are from the skill trade in the last 5 years. If you are claiming any Canadian experience, it has to be in 12 months for the last 3 years. For the eligibility criteria for the occupation and demand categories, it must be on the demand list. You need to provide the proof of professional status or the licensures. You need to have the settlement fund and the settlement plan. For the Saskatchewan Express Entry categories, you need to have the Express Entry profile. That's why CLB level 7 is must, and you need to have the job seeker code too. You also need to score 60 out of 100, and you need the ECA from the designated organizations, and have a proof of settlement fund and the settlement plan for your applications. Here also, when it comes to the work experience, it has to align with your educations, and the experience should match. If and you need to have diploma, the certificate, or any 1 year programs with equivalent to the Canadian education system, and you need to make sure you have 1 year experience in the last 10 years. So what is the process for SINP? Once you create your profile, you will be in the pool, and they will select the candidate based on your ranking, and they will send you the invitations to apply. Once you submit the applications, the SINP will assess your applications. They will ask for the any education extra documentations if they need, and they will approve your applications if they find it's eligible. Once you get these nominations, you will get the 600 points, and then it will be very easy for you to get the federal ITA. How this EOI candidates are ranked is like, once you get the points based on your SINP grade, and if you have the same score as the other candidates, then they will look at the other criteria like your connection to the province, your work experience, and your language abilities. Once if you have received ITA, and suppose they remove your occupations, then also your application will be still accepted because you already received the ITA. So you need to submit the application once you receive your ITA. Now SNP have also started the occupation specific draws. So sometimes your occupation in demand, but they won't be considered for the draw because they are doing the specific occupation draws. So what are the general guidelines for the completing this form? So you need to make sure you need to save all the applications, all the forms for the SNP online applications. If you need space, attach this sheet. If you have if you want to answer, make sure you provide all the answers. You can pause the video and check that out. Now it comes to the settlement fund. It has to uh, you need to meet this minimum criteria depending on the family size. If you are a family of three, you need $19,000 and 93. Also check the website because sometimes they changes every year, so it might not be validated for the next year. What are the funds can be accepted? If you have the saving account or checking accounts, bond, your value of the life insurance, GIC, mutual fund, provident fund, and you need the official letter from the provident fund organization indicating that amount of funds are accessible if required. RRSP, all those funds are needed in order to apply. Now let's talk about the settlement plan. You need to go to the IRCC Living in Canada tools to create your settlement plan. This is must when you apply for the SINP, so make sure you also have the settlement plan ready for you. If you need a license, make sure you get the license or apply for it, because you need to have the proof that you apply for the professional status or the license whenever is required. So make sure you check your categories and have this licensure applied already. You need to have the full fund for the 3 months, that you need to remember too. So here the last but not the least, your experience must meet with your education for SNP. You must need the settlement fund for the 3 months and all, and no gift deeds is accepted during that period of time, and you need ECA for education system. So that's all about the SINP. I hope you like my video. Thanks for watching this video. If you like it, please share it, this video, to your friends and family, and please don't forget to subscribe my channel to get the more videos for the SINP and the other Canada PR related stuff. Thank you.